friends, making tracks to great destinations.
Lego Duplo proudly supports Thomas and Friends on PBS Kids, where imagination and creative play fuel your child's journey. Lego Duplo, building sets for preschoolers.
Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them because you helped me to make them. Your loving Daddy.
The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams, and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine, and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the island of Sodor. Today, on the island of Sodor, we'll see what happens when Gordon has an important passenger to collect. And we'll share some fun times with James. But first, Thomas is about to meet someone new. Hector the Horrid. Thomas the Tank Engine enjoys shunting troublesome trucks. He can biff them harder and faster than any other engine. It's one of his favorite jobs. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt had an important announcement. James and Edward must make extra deliveries of coal, he boomed. Thomas, you must shunt and fill freight cars at the coaling plant. James and Edward, you must collect them this afternoon. Thomas was very pleased. Just then, Bill and Ben chuffed by. Between them was a big black truck. It was biffing and bashing the little engines. What are you two doing? Tooted Thomas. Bill and Ben told him they were delivering the truck to the coaling plant. Why does it need two engines to deliver one truck? Asked Thomas. Because he really doesn't like to be shunted, chuffed Ben. His name is Hector, huffed Bill, but we call him Hector the Horrid. Bill and Ben shoved slowly away with Hector. He does look troublesome, huffed James. Troublesome trucks don't worry me, boasted Thomas. I could biff him firmly into place. Later, Thomas chuffed into the coaling plant, and there was Hector. The other trucks giggled and laughed. Big, bad, strong, and solid. That truck's name is Hector the Horrid, they sang. Thomas puffed closer. Keep away, roared Hector. Bill and Ben were right, thought Thomas. Hector is scary, and Hector is horrid. Thomas decided to keep away. Thomas spent the morning shunting the other freight cars and filling them with coal. All the time, Thomas could feel Hector the Horrid watching him. The coaling plant manager came to see Thomas. "We need an extra large delivery," he said, "so Rosie is coming to help you. You must shunt and fill Hector. Then add him to the back of James's train," he told Thomas. Later, Rosie puffed into the yard. She saw Hector. "Wow, do we have to shunt and fill that big truck, Thomas?" she asked sweetly. "Yes," puffed Thomas, "but he doesn't want to be shunted. His name is..." But before Thomas could finish, Hector opened his mouth and let out the biggest roar ever. "Keep away!" he bellowed. Rosie was so surprised she shook from funnel to footplate, and she steamed straight out of the yard. This made Thomas cross. Hector had biffed and bashed Bill and Ben. He had shouted at Thomas, and he had frightened Rosie so much that she had puffed away. Now the extra delivery would never be ready. Thomas had had enough. He puffed up bravely in front of Hector and gave him a mighty biff. Hector rolled backwards. He was very cross. "Keep away!" he roared. "No, I won't," tooted Thomas crossly. "You are causing confusion and delay. You really are horrid." Then, with one mighty biff, Thomas sent Hector rolling backwards into a set of buffers. Hector crashed off the track. Thomas felt very bad. He hadn't meant to knock Hector over. Thomas puffed up to Hector. Hector lay on his side, looking very sad. Now Hector didn't seem so horrid. "I'm sorry I biffed you so hard," wheezed Thomas. "But why don't you want to be shunted?" "Because I'm scared," moaned Hector. "Why?" asked Thomas. "I'm new," he groaned. "And I'm scared because I haven't been filled with coal before. I don't know what it feels like. That's why I didn't want to be shunted," he added. Thomas was surprised. Later, Rocky and the workmen arrived and lifted Hector back onto the tracks. Thomas wanted to help Hector. "Sometimes I'm scared when I have to do something new," he chuffed. "But coal isn't scary." Hector watched as Thomas rolled under the coal hopper. Black, dusty coal poured into Thomas's coal box. When the dust settled, Hector saw that Thomas was smiling. "See? It's not scary," tooted Thomas proudly. Now Hector was excited. "I'd like to be filled with coal too," he rumbled. "We must hurry," puffed Thomas. Thomas pulled Hector quickly under the coal hopper. Hector was quickly filled with coal. It felt wonderful. Then Thomas shunted Hector into place, just in time. James and Edward puffed into the yard. They saw their waiting trains. James was very surprised to see Hector at the back. "Well done, Thomas," snorted James. The trains were soon coupled up. James and Edward puffed away for their special deliveries. They were very surprised to hear Thomas whistle, "Good luck!" But the whistle wasn't for them. It was Thomas tooting to his new friend, Hector the Not Horrid at All. Harold Harold spends a lot of time flying over the island of Sodor. Sometimes he sees strange shapes below him. Can you guess what they are? This shape is long and thin. It has two flat arms sticking out on either side. And it's white. Can you guess what it is? It's Jeremy the Lane. Jeremy is one of Harold's new friends. What other shapes can you see? This shape is a rectangle. It's black at the back, then red in the middle, and there's a gold circle. Can you guess what it is? Harold thinks it might be another one of his friends. Let's have a look. Yes, it's his friend James. The black at the back was the coal in his tender. The red was his boiler. The gold circle was his dome. Things look very different from up in the sky. But Harold knows what they are. See you soon, Harold.
Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It's might delight, it's might offend. That's why there's surprises with all their highs and lows. You come on top, or come full stop. Who knows, who knows, who knows? You're halfway up a hillside and all is going fine. When all at once a snowslide comes right across the line. You think you're really done for, but help is on its way. You'd be surprised how often that someone saves the day. Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It's might delight, it's might offend. That's why there's surprises with all their highs and lows. You come on top or come full stop. Who knows, who knows, who knows? Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It's might delight, it's might offend. That's why there's surprises with all their highs and lows. You come out top, come full stop, shine and gleam, neat and clean. Take the mail, come off the rail. Who knows, who knows, who knows?
The island of Sodor is a wonderful place. There are lots and lots of engines. Who's that puffing along the track? It's James. James is a bright red engine. He can pull lots of freight cars. He has the number 5 painted on his tender, a bright brass dome, and 6 strong driving wheels that clickety-clack along the tracks of Sodor. James is the only red engine, and he is very proud of his red coat. One day, James had a bright new coat of red paint. He wanted all the other engines to tell him how wonderful he looked. The next morning, Sir Topham Hatt told James to help Percy at the coaling plant. But James went to gaze at his reflection in the canal. At last, James arrived. The yard manager told him to take an extra long line of freight cars to Brendam Docks. James was very happy. There were a lot of people at the docks to tell him how splendid he looked. So James puffed off. But the freight cars were very troublesome. They biffed and they bashed. They wriggled and giggled and covered James in coal dust. When James arrived at Brendam, his bright red coat was very dirty. Luckily, James is never too proud to see the funny side, but his pride can get him into a lot of trouble. There was to be a new holiday poster for the island of Sodor. Sir Topham Hatt chose Edward to be the poster engine. James was upset. He and Edward were almost the same. James decided to do everything he could to be the poster engine. He tried to get into the poster photograph, but Sir Topham Hatt sent him away. Thomas and Percy told James that Edward was chosen because he was gentle. And Edward didn't mind doing dirty jobs. So James was gentle at the coaling yard. But that made him late. James took the express track to race Edward. He was just in front when a signal turned red. James screeched to a halt. But Edward couldn't stop in time. Edward ran into James, and James shot straight through the poster. Now James was the poster engine. James knows when he has gone too far, and then he helps his friends. That's because James is a really useful red engine, and he shines most of all when he is with his friends. Every engine on the island of Sodor looks different. Can you tell who this is? This engine is green. But there are lots of green engines on Sodor. What else can we see? This engine only has 2 wheels on each side. This is a small engine. Do you know who it is yet? Let's see if there's another clue. It's the number 6. Which engine on Sodor is number 6? That's right. It's Percy. Hello, Percy. Thomas's whistle is broken. Which new whistle should Thomas choose? That doesn't sound like an engine whistle. Try another whistle, Thomas. Does that sound like an engine whistle? Let's listen again. That doesn't sound like an engine whistle either. There's one more whistle left. I wonder what this one sounds like. That sounds like a very good engine whistle. Well done, Thomas. Gordon and the Mechanic. There are railway lines all over the island of Sodor. The railway runs from Brendam Docks right across the countryside. So there are lots of signals. They help the engines to stay safe as they go about their work. All the engines have favorite jobs. Gordon loves pulling the express. Gordon thinks it's the most important job on the island. And Gordon likes to feel important. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Gordon. Gordon, the points are broken, said Sir Topham Hatt. An important mechanic is coming to fix them. You are to collect him at Marin Station. Then you must take him to the points as quickly as possible. Don't worry, sir, chuffed Gordon. I'll get him to the points for you. Gordon steamed to Marin. All the other engines were stuck. They couldn't go anywhere until the points were fixed. They all had to wait as Gordon puffed grandly along the express line. I'm an important engine collecting an important passenger, he puffed proudly. Gordon felt very grand. Gordon pulled into Marin Station. There was a passenger carrying a toolbox waiting on the platform. He must be the important mechanic, thought Gordon. All aboard, he whistled, and the man with the toolbox climbed on board. Wait, said the station master. Bertie the bus is bringing more passengers. I can't wait, Gordon huffed. I have a very important passenger on board. I have to leave now. And he left. Gordon puffed proudly along. But he didn't know that the man with the toolbox wasn't the mechanic. Or that Bertie the bus had brought the mechanic with all the other passengers. They were still waiting on the platform. Oh no, groaned the mechanic. I've missed my train. How will I ever fix the points now? Gordon rattled past Donald. Then he clattered past Douglas. Important engine coming through, chuffed Gordon. This made Douglas very cross. But the man with the toolbox was having a wonderful time. He was the only passenger, and he didn't have to stop at any of the other stations. At last, Gordon arrived at the broken points. I'm glad you're here, puffed Thomas. None of the engines can move until the points are fixed. But the man with the toolbox was very confused. I'm not the mechanic, said the man. I'm a carpenter. I thought Gordon was taking me to the docks. Oh, no. I've left the mechanic behind, moaned Gordon. I'll have to go back and get him. But you can't reverse down the express line with the express, said the signalman. Maybe you could go on my line, puffed Thomas. That's a good idea, puffed Gordon. Thank you, Thomas. So Gordon backed down the line and left his express coaches. Then he steamed onto Thomas's track. He reversed quickly down Thomas's line. But he found Douglas blocking his way. Out of my way, puffed Gordon. I've got an important passenger to collect. Ah, you can't get past, puffed Douglas. I can only go back as far as the next station. Then Donald is in the way. Gordon felt awful. All the engines were stuck, and it was all his fault. How can I collect the mechanic, he puffed. Then Gordon had an idea. Maybe all the engines can help, he thought. Gordon told Douglas his idea. Then Douglas puffed down the track to tell Donald. What a great plan, chuffed Donald. So Donald puffed back to collect the mechanic. The mechanic climbed on board. Then Donald shoved back up the line. Donald left the mechanic at the station. Then Douglas took the mechanic to the next stop, where Gordon was waiting for him. Finally, Gordon took the mechanic to the broken points. The points were soon fixed, and all the engines could puff through. "Thank you, Gordon," puffed Thomas. That evening, the railway was back to normal. "Thank you for helping me today," puffed Gordon. "Even an important engine like me needs help sometimes."
Trucks and